my case, the grain comes in, we select the grain, we mash, we ferment, we distill, and now we've got a product. If we're not aging it like whiskey, but we've got a product that then now is consumable. It's something you can enjoy, and that there's sort of a zen-like satisfaction that comes from working within a process and then trying to optimize that process and thinking critically about all the steps. I think we overlook the importance of what that is for our mental health.
All right. Today, my guest is John Mleziva, and you are the owner, founder, and well, I guess you're the operator of State Line Distillery. Is that right?
That's right. I mean, I've got a helpful team around me, but this is my full-time gig here.
So you're in Madison, Wisconsin, right? That's in Madison.
Yes.
Awesome. So I'm in Kansas City, actually. Well, an hour north of Kansas City, pretty much Kansas City.
Yeah.
But I got Chiefs and you got the Green Bay Packers nearby. So
yeah, we're both not too happy at this stage of the season, but
exactly.
We'll be there next year, right?
We always say that, right? We always hope that.
Yeah.
So tell me, man, what's your background? How'd you get into the distillery game?
Oh man. Yeah, my background, it's a long winding path like most people, right? I mean, I went to school for biology way back in the day. But I ended up actually, my grandpa got me into home brewing. We'll call it around 21 ish. Right. And so I was always interested in fermentation science, but never looked at it as a career. So, I actually ended up back in Minneapolis, which is where I'm from, working in higher education. So I got a master's degree in higher ed, which led me to Madison, Wisconsin. And on the side, always home brewing, always tinkering. And then through a chance encounter, I met the owner of a local brewery. I had been at Edgewood here in Madison for almost 4 years. And I think I, bothered him enough that he finally said, yeah, you can come shovel grain for free, on the weekends. So that was my first kind of dipping my toe into production level, beverage making at all. And I fell in love with it. And that led me to finding a program over in Scotland at Heriot-Watt University, which was a master's in brewing and distilling, master's in science. And so I left my position at Edgewood, moved abroad, fully intending that I was going to open a brewery because that was really all I had done. But you spend a year living in Scotland, working at the Scotch Whisky Institute, and your priorities shift. So really, but honestly, what I fell in love with for distillation was that it's an extension of brewing. We take the principles of how do we do a really interesting fermentation process, manage the yeast, pick our grains, all of that, and then take it to the next step and turn it into something that's really interesting from a distilled spirits. So that's the circuitous path that got me to being sitting where I am here today.
Man, I've got so it starts like that with a lot of hobbies and loves of our lives is we start in one part and we kind of dig into it a little bit, and I'm sure you enjoyed liquor or the spirits before you became a distiller. So I actually have a very similar thing I'm going through right now, as a matter of fact. So I've been a cannabis smoker for like 20, 25 years. Right.
Yeah.
And it just now became legal in my state. And so a couple of years ago, I was like, well, hell, I can, do a lot of things now that I wasn't able to before. So I started growing, man. I started growing recently. And now I'm at the point where all I think about is, the gear and the science and everything that goes into it. And it's almost more pleasurable than partaking, than smoking.
Sure.
So I'm kind of in a similar spot right now. And I thought, well, I looked up laws on the commercial aspect of growing, and I'm just not interested in going that route because there's so many rules and regulations that it damn near sucks all the fun out of it, as well as the profit. So
I know
I
that.
just I decided not to go that route. And now I'm thinking about like I might get a job at a commercial grow facility because that'd be a great way to learn and get some hands-on experience with some like standard operating procedures that I don't have here at home. Because like on a larger scale, you have to have standard operating procedures or else your product won't turn out right. There's no consistency, blah, blah,
Right.
blah. You
Yeah,
know all
absolutely.
about that.
Absolutely.
So thinking that I in thinking that I want to get to know the science more, I think a larger scale would be the best opportunity I have at getting that as quick as possible, if that makes sense. Because here at home, I've got small batches, whereas at a commercial grow facility, they got, acres of it. So is
Yeah.
so is that similar what it's like for you on the small batch? It's very similar to what it is on a large scale, but on
Well,
a large scale, there's more procedural that you have to do exactly the same or there's no consistency.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of similarities there. I would assume. I've never worked at a cannabis farm before, which sounds actually like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
For from the science side of things. Yes, so we've got a standard operating procedure for everything we do, and it's interesting because that is how you achieve consistency throughout a year. So, for instance, like our American gin, we're using fresh, locally grown sage. Well, that sage that we're harvesting in March, April, May is very different than the sage that we're getting in October. So we have to not only have a standard operating procedure from a recipe point of view, but we also have to have a procedure for blending and tasting and blind setups so that we have consistency from our product. But the interesting part is that your question about going from small scale to large scale, there it really, things don't scale nicely in brewing and or distilling. The what we would consider like the usage of the botanical load that you're using for gin at a small scale, it's not a logarithmic increase. So
Right.
what happens is if you at a very small scale you used 1 pound of sage, but then at a large scale you're supposed to use 10 pounds. Well, that doesn't always equate. So we have this trial and error, and you have to kind of learn the science behind why things don't just scale easily, and
Right.
then adjust from there. So I would suspect that anytime you're talking using plants and oils and things like that, that they don't scale 1 to 1, right? You have to kind of learn
Right.
how that works.
Well, I'm kind of in that spot right now in my actual, in my home grow. I've only got two plants going at the same time right now, but I feed them the same thing. However, they're two different plants.
Hmm.
So when you're scaling from one plant to a two plant, it's not that big of a difference. I'm still hand watering and everything, but when you go from like 2 to 3 to 4 plants to a much larger scale than that, it's like you said, you have to calculate things a little differently because you would think that if you split it evenly per plant that it's going to hit per plant, and
Right.
there's some chemicals in the mix that are heavier than others, so they travel further down the line or not as far down the line. So you kind of have to figure all that in there when you're feeding and stuff like that. But on for me, my plants are two different sizes.
Sure.
And so on a much larger scale, that doesn't happen. The plants are roughly the same size because they're getting the same amount of nutrients. That's very interesting. And like, so I also find it fascinating on a personal level. I've never brewed anything or like made any alcohol or anything like that. I didn't really understand how satisfying all this stuff was, like producing your own product
Yeah.
and producing, like if you use it yourself, you produce it, everything that goes into it, and from start to finish there's a satisfaction to that you can't get anywhere else other than working with your hands. Do you find
Yeah.
that with, have you lost any love over the years of making your products?
No, I really haven't. I mean, I think that obviously the stresses of running a small business, that doesn't change the love for my business, but it is a reality that's
Right.
there, right? But the actual making of the thing, of the spirits, I still nerd out about that as much as I did before I moved back home from Scotland. And I think your point is super relevant in way outside of the scope of what you and I are doing. But I think I think we forget how satisfying it is to work with your hands and
Yes.
to complete a project from start to finish. There is something I think innately human that we need, that people should do things like that, whether it's your own little hobby, woodworking or whatever. There's so much of our existence day to day are tasks that seem never ending.
Yeah.
Whereas if you start, in my case, the grain comes in, we select the grain, we mash, we ferment, we distill, and now we've got a product. If we're not aging it like whiskey, but we've got a product that then now is consumable. It's something you can enjoy, and that there is real there's sort of a zen like satisfaction that comes from working within a process and then trying to optimize that process and thinking critically about all the steps. I think we overlook the importance of what that is for our mental health.
Oh yeah, that's a recurring topic here on the podcast. We talk about that all the time. I have anxiety, and I have autism. I have a bunch of shit that's wrong with me. But basically, man, I chase the hard stuff. I really do. When like there's stuff that I don't like to do in my everyday life, like for example, mowing the lawn. I use this example on the podcast all the time. I don't really like mowing the lawn, but I like how I feel when I'm done.
Yeah.
That's the example that I like to give to people is, hey man, nobody likes to mow the lawn. Like who really likes to mow the lawn? I know I probably three or four people in my life that say that they enjoy the mowing the lawn. I'm not sure that's entirely true because I hate it. But when I go out there, when I get started, and I put some headphones on, I get some music going, and I get into the zone and I'm working, I'm getting up a sweat or whatever. But the feeling when I'm done is I did that and it
Yeah.
looks really good. And I think that's society misses out on that a lot. And I listen to a lot of Joe Rogan's podcast, and he talks about that a lot. How we should always do the hard stuff. We should, it's the hard shit that makes us better in the end. Because if we're going through life and everything's easier or everything's easy, we never come up across adversity. Like do we really know our capabilities at the end of it? You know?
Yeah. Agreed. And I also think, adversity and being able to, failure, adversity, success, they're all linked towards the human experience. And if you're never experiencing the highs of something that you've worked really hard to do to complete, or the lows that you've tried your best and something doesn't work out, well, what is that? That's not living. Living is trying to push, trying to grow, whatever that means to you. Grow as a person, grow as a craftsman, grow whatever you need to do to kind of push that needle forward.
Yeah, I like saying my goal at every day is I strive to be a better husband, a better father, and a better man than I was the day before. That's something I always say. But hey, speaking of ups and downs, you have a coffee liqueur, right?
I do.
So tell me about that because I love like as it you can gather from the name, I love coffee. I spend most of my day drinking coffee. Tell me about the coffee liqueur and how you came up with it.
Yeah, I mean that's a fun story for us as a company. Coffee liqueur was certainly not in my business plan right back in the day, and so your listeners probably don't know that, or maybe they do. In Wisconsin, like many states, cocktail lounges like ours, which are on site at the distillery, we can only serve the liquor we make, right? So
Right.
as part of the laws that are set up. And so, gosh, this is probably 4 years ago at this point. Um, I wanted to have a big Lebowski party at the distillery, and so you need White Russians for that, right? And so we had our vodka. We knew of a local cream producer because we're in Wisconsin, but we needed a coffee liqueur, and so we ended up approaching this kind of like we do any other R&D project, which is to say, what's out there, what's the landscape of a spirit. Um, where are there areas where we can kind of add our voice and really jump into the conversation by making something that stands out. And so at the time, there were very few coffee liqueurs that I would say used real coffee, right? Most coffee
Yeah.
liqueurs on the market are using some sort of extract. And so I reached out to a local coffee roaster and coffee shop here called Kin Coffee. And we basically spent the next 8 months going down a very caffeinated rabbit hole to create the perfect kind of cold brew concoction that would mix with our vodka, organic cane sugar to make what was essentially a spirit for a party. And so,
Yeah.
so we created the coffee liqueur, using real coffee, our vodka, and this organic cane sugar through the party. It was a hit. The spirit really was well received. At this point, it was just in the cocktail lounge. And now fast forward 4 years later, and it represents 55% of our total sales. And
Wow.
it's won best coffee liqueur in the world multiple times at San Francisco World Spirits Competition, double gold, platinum spirit. So you know, it's really kind of to me, it's I have a lot of pride in this spirit because it does represent kind of the way we approach the industry. And it just
Hell
happens
yeah.
to be that it was very well received, and it's delicious. I mean, go figure, when you use real coffee, a good base spirit, and organic sugar, and don't make it cloyingly sweet, it finishes coffee.
Right.
uh People want to drink it.
Absolutely. And so like that's one thing, like Americans, we love our coffee, man. Like we love our
Yes,
coffee. And like I said before, I spent are you drinking coffee right now?
I
So,
am.
me too. Me too.
Yeah.
I'm constantly drinking coffee, man. And that's the thing. Like I've often thought about like cannabis infused coffee because
Mm.
like there's this whole market that that people miss out on with wake and bake.
Oh
I don't
shit.
know if you've heard that term.
I have heard that term. Yes.
Been a long time, probably since
Yeah.
college. They have this whole wake and bake thing where like people who partake or live the cannabis lifestyle, they wake up in the morning and that's the first thing they do is they smoke a joint or smoke a bowl, whatever it is, and they get high. Well, I would love to marry the two loves of my life, coffee and cannabis. That would be amazing. I don't know if anybody's done that yet, but if they haven't, there's a free idea for you.
Well, there you go. I haven't heard of it, but yeah.
So Wisconsin, man, like what's it like? You are from Minnesota and so you live in Wisconsin now. There's not too much of a difference in weather there.
Mm.
What is there any differences, big differences other than the the culture of cheese versus I don't know whatever Minnesota's got.
It's funny. There are some pretty significant differences. Even though we're two states that literally touch one another, um, there the I would say it this way: the base, most of the population in Minnesota is Scandinavian based, right? You've got a lot of people from that area of the world that sort of settled um, in Minnesota, whereas in Wisconsin, heavy German influence, right? And so think,
Interesting.
yeah. So when it comes to how that plays out, and it's really interesting because I grew up in Minneapolis. my dad was from Green Bay. This is how I became a Packer fan, by the way, living in Vikings territory. But my dad was born and raised in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Grandpa's season ticket holder to Lambeau, like the whole 9 yards, right? And so I, some in some ways, because we'd always go back. My mom was an only child, but my dad has four sisters, so we'd always be going back to Green Bay for all of these holidays and things. And I always just kind of felt, you know, more like a Wisconsin night than a Minnesotan in some ways,
Right.
strange. I'm sure my friends who hear this from Minnesota are gonna be like, you're trading, you know, uh, but, but really, I think what it comes down to is that this in Wisconsin, there is a kind of that jovial, uh, kind of not party's not the right word, but very communal based, like we're going to drink beer, polka and have a good time. Right. And
Pretty much like Germany.
yes. And then in Minnesota, it's just a little more refined. It's a little more reserved because of that
Right.
Scandinavian nature. And it's still what I think the through
Well, I think
line.
they also have that slogan, Minnesota Nice.
Correct. And you'll find that in Wisconsin, because I was going to say the through line to me is that there is, in both Minnesota and Wisconsin, there are a high number of people that might move out of state for a little bit, but they come back. And there's this real pride around your community, pride of your state. And so, it's not a transient population, so to speak.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's a good a good comparison for Germany and Scandinavian uh history and backgrounds there. That's fascinating that they are so different like that, right next to each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah.
So when you had started, the distillery and getting up on your feet and everything, did you work more then than you do now, or is it about the same?
It's different now. When I first opened State Line, we were pretty bare bones in terms of our production staff. It was
Right.
Mark, my production manager, and myself, and then my bar manager, and he sort of supervised the bar side of the staff. So I would say 80% of my time was spent on the floor producing, right? And
Right.
20% of my time was working with distributors and trying to grow the business. And now I'd say that that's flipped to 90-10, where
Oh,
10% of my time is actually spent making the thing I went to school to make.
right.
And 90% of my time is actually working on the business. But it's funny. There are certainly days I miss, like I can hear the like heavy metal music ripping down on the
Oh yeah.
production floor and everyone's having a good time. I mean, we're still a small team. It's three production staff, right? Um, and I miss that, working out there and the camaraderie of that, and the actually hauling bags of grain and things like that.
Right.
But I've found a lot of a joy in purpose in sort of my role as a business owner at this point, is to build community within the walls of our space, so
Right.
people are excited to be here, that I've empowered them to do their job and do it well, do it better than I could in their roles, and then provide sort of the leadership around the vision of where we're going, how we're going to get there, and be excited about that. So it's a different set of challenges that I look at now to try to fix and
So
and
was it
work
was
out.
State Line Distillery your first business?
Yeah, it is. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
I mean, other than mowing lawns when I was 14. So,
Right, right. Yeah, I think we all had that rite of passage.
yeah,
What's so interesting to me is you find out that you had mentioned that 90-10 split. Did you
yeah,
find out that there's other aspects of the business that you absolutely love other than obviously making the product itself?
yeah. I mean, I think from my time in higher education, I was almost 8 years in higher ed by the time I went to school and kind of
Wow.
finished up all that. One of the
So
things
almost a decade teaching. Is
yeah,
that
well, I was actually, I mean, yes, right. I mean, I think everybody in a higher education role in some way is in a teaching role. I was not a professor. I was the assistant director of student activities. So think
okay?
about, you know, convocation, new student orientation. I was always on that side of the fence. So the education that happens outside of the classroom
Okay.
is the easiest way to say it. Um, and one of the things I loved about that role, you know, in working in higher education in general, is that much of my focus and work was around building teams, helping to kind of create community and have a flourishing area for people to be. And so, you know, when I first started State Line, when my work was much more just the manual labor of a distillery, I kind of missed that work, you know, that
Right.
idea of having a team of people that I know very well, that I know what motivates them. I know how to kind of set goals and manage all of that. And so I find a lot of joy in that aspect of my work. Um, and then the other thing that I guess I didn't think I would like as much is uh, how how good I've gotten at building really powerful spreadsheets over the years, and just
Oh
like
yeah.
the background, like uh, figuring out ways to look at a very complicated problem, which is uh, you know, how much revenue, all the things that to go along with the business, and then back out of there from a, you know, a spreadsheet that can actually be useful. So
Yeah, what I find interesting is how quickly you can look at that spreadsheet and how quickly we can see problems from just a quick glance at the spreadsheet once you've been
yeah,
doing it a while.
yep,
It's incredible. One thing that I find fascinating about your business in particular is distribution.
yeah.
I'm a huge fan of logistics for some stupid reason. COVID-19 did that to me. I didn't really care about logistics all that much until COVID-19. But back in the day, when I was younger, I've always been interested in big trucks and trains and intermodal systems. But I never really thought too much about distribution, and I never really thought much about supply lines and stuff like that. And so for you, in your business, were you operating during or in 2019, 2020 first with State Line?
Yeah, we opened in 2017, so we had been open basically a couple of years
Wow.
when everything shut down.
So you all like, you're lucky to be here. Is that what I'm getting?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think we pivoted and we made hand sanitizer for the entire state of Wisconsin, and that was
That's cool.
um, a lifeline for us, right? I mean, it was a way for us to have positive impact, but it also was a way for us to have a revenue source when
Right.
80% of our revenue was on premise at that point, you know, bars and restaurants, and those just
Right.
literally closed overnight. So yeah, anyway.
Exactly. That's kind of where I was going with it is did you struggle through COVID-19 because of, so logistics is just mind-blowing how you can't really do anything without thinking about logistics, but not very many people are truly good at it because they
Yeah.
don't think about, they don't really think about supply lines and like because we had such a um we depend on China for a lot of things. Like
Mm-hmm.
we, at that time, we were even getting N95 masks from China, and it really makes you think. That's how I got into logistics and really thinking about it is the supply the supply lines got cut. And
Yeah.
did you have any supplies that for your normal business that you were getting back then that you can't get now?
Uh, Nothing that we can't get now, but things certainly, there was a window in which we could not get anything. Glass, for instance, coming from China,
That's interesting.
was very, very challenging to get. And then, of course, the price just went through the roof on it.
Right.
Um, and some of that price has come back, but not, you know, certainly not pre-COVID levels. It just
Right.
you knew that was going to happen, right? If is
Right.
they raise the price, they're not going to now suddenly drop the price, even though they've got shipment containers coming from Mexico instead.
Right.
Um, right. So yeah, I think, you know, one of the more interesting things is that because we're grain to glass, which just means we're sourcing from farms here that are 50 miles, not even some of
That's
them.
awesome. That
Um,
is awesome.
there was a huge disruption in grain that a lot of distilleries, big and small, were getting hit really hard on that because of obviously the
Really?
big players. Just like in beer, if there's a hop shortage, well, the big breweries are going to get their hops. Everyone else can
Right.
wait. Same thing with grain. Um, so not only did you have a huge disruption in supply, uh, you also had a big jump in price because of demand, right?
Right.
But because we worked, this was kind of an unforeseen positive consequence for us, because we worked directly with farmers, our grain supply never changed and never changed a dime. And in fact, we're still paying the same rate we did
That's
5, 6,
awesome.
7 years ago, right? And so there's the flip side of that coin where we have stability on at least one of our most important commodities that we work with. But in general, I think one of the challenges of owning a distillery at my scale, which is to say we're, smallish, is that as operational costs increase, we can't directly roll that into the cost to the consumer. Whereas,
Yeah.
you think like a construction business, you try to build a house now, it's going to cost you more than it did 6 months ago because the price
Right.
of lumber or whatever it be. The idea that we could flex our cost of a bottle of spirit like that is just doesn't exist. And so if you don't have the cushion as the big players do to absorb some of those margins, it gets challenging.
I bet that's what the most challenging thing for me would be is to figure out the margins on all that stuff because you got so much going into it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
not you've got my overhead is simple to figure out because like right now I pay for a handful of services every month for this thing and I actually do it yearly, but it's easier for me to break it down per month because
Yeah.
I that's how I measure my income is it comes in per month and per quarter, and then per year.
Yep.
I think that would be really difficult for me to figure out is margins and all that stuff because like at this point like my overhead is so minimal that anything I make over like $100 a month is profit, but it's just getting figuring out at scale once you get to we'll use spirits for an example. When you've got 12 bottles in a case and you can sell all that, I can figure out the margins on that. But
Yeah.
if I don't have like numbers right in front of me, like in a spreadsheet, it would take me a while. Like I'm not very good with numbers in my head. So if I had a whole batch that just went out, like I would have to sit down, pen and paper, and how much figure out the bottle
Yep.
and I think that would be difficult for me to transition to. And that's essentially why I don't run a larger scale business than what I do now, is because I have to do everything by myself.
Yeah.
And did you find that as a challenge when you were starting out? Is you had said that it was just you and your production manager at that time, right?
Yeah.
And so just the two of you have an insurmountable amount of work to do every day. How did you get over that and like just grin and bear it and just go? Was it just the love of the product you were making, or was it some other kind of driving force that just got you in there to do that?
I mean, I think the primary force for me is that I wanted to take this idea that was in my head and figure out how to bring it to life, right? And so then
Right, right.
when it's your own idea that you're working on, it I'm always kind of working, whether it's just thinking about certain problems that I'm trying to fix, but it's not always, I don't always feel like I'm clocked in, right? I mean, it's not like
Right.
I'm sitting behind my desk 80 hours a week like some people do. I'm married, I have two kids, and I've very luckily I've achieved very good work life balance in that sense, but it doesn't mean I'm not working on problems, if that makes sense.
Right.
So,
Yes, absolutely.
and like anything else, when I'm out for a walk with the dog or whatever, those are often when I have the aha moments about a spreadsheet I've been working on for 2.5 weeks. All of a sudden I'm
Yeah.
like, that one cell, that needs to change to this, and now it'll flow through, or I got to flip this column. And so I guess it's a labor of love. Like, I don't think, I think anybody that's trying to start a business, if you're not passionate about the thing you're trying to do, um, is it's going to be really hard, because you
Right.
are putting in a lot more work than anybody else on all the little details. And yeah, I mean, building out those margins and spreadsheets and trying to figure out pricing and then deal structure and distribution, like, it's a steep learning curve. I mean,
Right.
how I, you know, if I had to go back, I'd do a lot of things differently, just like everything any entrepreneur says, right? I mean, 8 years into this thing, and I'm like, okay, I sort of understand what I'm doing now.
Yeah, yeah, sort of. So
Yeah,
every day it seems like you learn something new. That's my
yeah,
experience in pretty much everything that I throw myself at. And you had mentioned labor of love, and when you would use that phrase, I'm like, yes, that's the phrase I was looking for. Um, I this thing is a labor of love for me, so I definitely know what you're talking about.
yeah,
It's not putting in the extra hours almost isn't work when you know I mean it's required and everything, but it when you're enjoying what you're doing, like I was just mentioning supply chain and all that good stuff. Like I'm an autodidact, so I love learning past when I have to.
hmm,
I learn I learned very early on that learning can be fun if you want it to be. And so that aspect of it is where I tend to shine in everything that I do, essentially, if I enjoy doing it. The problem comes when people either A, get in my way, or B, what they want to help, or C, when they try to communicate with me when I'm in a flow state. And I'm like, just get out of my way. And I want to do this
yeah.
myself, and that's how I learn the most is doing myself. Is there any aspects about the business itself or distilling that you don't like?
Well, distilling, no. I mean, I love,
Process from A to B?
yeah, process A to B is really, I mean, sure. Like, is cleaning tanks the most fun thing you ever do in your life? No, but it's necessary to be able to create an environment to make really good spirits. So, if you don't have a
When
sort
you
of,
look at it like that, it is kind of fun.
yeah, I mean, it is, if you don't have a natural affinity for wanting to pay attention to the details, like a production style of a career is probably not for you in terms of trying to figure that out. Um, Gosh, that's a good question. The thing I don't like about doing my business, I guess the only things that I find challenging for me, and usually it's one of those kind of like what you were saying, you mow the lawn and you enjoy it afterwards. As much as I am an extrovert and love being in communities, in group settings and things like that, I don't love giving up a lot of my weekend time to do things, because it's away from my family. But I also understand the importance of me, as I've gone along in this business, is part of the business is me, right? It's part of me is needs to be out there, needs to be in the community. I have to have, um, I have to make time to nurture that as well. And so sometimes that's the tug and pull, because I don't like missing my, what I would call, like, family time. But
Absolutely.
that's where I try to achieve as much work life balance as I can. So
So let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about
yeah,
your family. Does your
yeah.
family get involved in the business at all?
I laugh because I'm smiling because back during COVID, I did a whole thing if you go scroll back far enough on our Instagram feed, you'll find it. We did cocktails with Chloe when she was like 3, and she'd stir, and it was a whole thing. It was a lot of fun. Um, uh, so yes, sort of, right. I've got a 4-year-old Elsie, a 8, almost 9-year-old Chloe, and then my wife Deanna. She actually helps with like our accounting, QuickBooks and things. I
Right.
have an accountant, but she does work for State Line to do reconciliation and stuff that there's something I don't like to do, reconcile the books. And so I was
I
very
don't do
happy.
any of that. I
Yeah,
don't do any of that.
I was very happy to let that go, and she loves to do it. So I was like, perfect. That is your task. So um, they are involved sort of tangentially, but also I couldn't do this without the support of my family and my wife from day one when I moved to Scotland and we kind of took on this adventure together has been my number one cheerleader. And and of course the days when you're feeling like, man, this is I can't figure something out, or this is too hard, like they're the ones in your corner being like, you got this, and that's, for me, that's really important to have that sounding board and that support system who's like, just keep doing what you're doing, John, and we'll get there together.
Hell
So
yeah, I so know what you're talking about. Because, like, in those moments myself, I want to be like, no, I don't have this. You don't understand. I don't have anything. I
yeah,
don't know why you have so much confidence in me. But I'm so grateful and glad for those moments, though, because those are the moments I'm hardest on myself.
right,
And, like you get that tunnel vision. And, like, in those moments, at least for myself, I don't think I can do anything right. And I'm so self critical. And from out of nowhere comes a voice of reason. And I'll never forget this. My brother, one time, I was talking about quitting the podcast before I even started it.
yeah,
And I was so pissed off. And it was partially his fault that I was mad. But when we first started this thing, I had my studio was a lot different. The wall behind me was actually a false wall that my brother had built for me, and the
mm-hmm.
TV was just mounted up there. Well, he had hung my TV mount backwards, and I went to go hang the TV on it, and it wasn't going to go on there because the mount was backwards. And I said, "Son of a bitch." And I was so pissed off and so upset with myself. It had already taken at that point like 6 months to get where I was, and is still, in the garage, and just I had no faith in myself. I had no confidence, and I was just ready to quit. Talking to my brother, he's like, "Bro, the only one standing in your way is you." And I
Mm,
was like, I took that, and I swallowed it, and it was really hard pill to swallow, man.
yeah,
And I'm like, you know what? He's right. He's absolutely right. The only one standing in my way is me. Like, it doesn't cost a damn dime to hit that publish button. It really doesn't. It really doesn't cost it. Okay, so it does cost on the electric bill or whatever to push the power
sure,
button.
yeah,
But I mean, it really I it was what I call stinking thinking. And that in those moments, everything just kind of collapses, and you feel like this incredible anxiety. And then you got to really, you know, a friendly voice coming in from behind you and saying, "Hey, man, you got this. You got
yeah.
this. Don't give up on yourself." I love that about my family and your family now. I just love that about family in general, that even in the roughest times, we can always fall back on, like most of us can fall back on our family. And do you find that your family is so find trying to find the words to explain this or ask this, because sometimes my words don't come out as nice as I like them to, and it sounds like I'm trying to be a dick, but that's totally not what. So, are there times where you find that your family is accepting and supportive
Mhm.
of your ventures, just to get you out of their hair and get you, hey, John, go make another whiskey, or go, do you find that your family knows that you're so passionate about it that they can just send you to the workshop to get you out of their hair?
That's funny. Uh, boy, I'm going to ask my wife that tonight. I've never gotten this. I've never felt that. I've never gotten the sense of that. I think, I'm really lucky and very blessed to have a family. Like, we all love spending time with each other and doing things together. And so, uh, there, I guess the only time it's not sending me out, it would be pulling me back, right? If it's Saturday morning and all of a sudden I hit this idea, and I could be working on something from a
Yeah.
spreadsheet land all day, and just a gentle, like, hey, you want to, like, let's go outside, let's do something, so it's, um yeah, no, I feel very lucky. My family doesn't try to kick me out the door. I just do
I'll
that
tell you
enough
where
on
that
my own.
comes from. I'll tell you where that comes from.
Yeah.
The only reason, sometimes I feel like the reason why my family is so supportive is to shut me up. And that's kind of where I was going with that.
Yeah.
Like I've been a stay-at-home dad for, oh gosh, now almost 12 years now. I've been a stay-at-home dad. And it's kind of morphed over the years from being a stay-at-home dad to now a caretaker, to a stay-at-home dad, to a house husband, now a podcaster. So I wear a lot of hats. And I like to stay busy now, but it hasn't always been that way. But my wife is so supportive of me that it's actually hard for me to believe sometimes. Like, are you being genuine right now, or do you just want me to shut up? Like, it's that kind of thing.
Sure.
That's so when I started growing, cannabis, like I didn't think I would get a yes when I asked. And so when I got a yes, I was like, okay, you understand what all this entails. It's thousands of dollars in equipment and this, that, and that. She's like, yeah, yeah, go ahead. I support you. And now that I'm into it, it's like the podcast and the cannabis and the kids, like my day is full, but I don't feel I don't feel like worn down from my activities. I feel like there's my day is 24 hours, but I feel like I wish it had 30 hours.
Yeah.
And like the good thing about like me being busy is everybody else is busy too. So like when we're not busy, that's when we spend time together. But for for me, it just sometimes I have to I have to force myself sometimes to be supportive of other people. So I guess maybe that may be why I take it with, like a grain of salt. Like, are you
Mhm.
genuinely happy for me? Are you genuinely supportive, or are you just saying that so that, I feel supported? And
Yeah.
I like to ask that question sometimes because, you have to challenge the way you think sometimes. So that's where it came from. But
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think that, if you're lucky enough to be in an environment with a partner that is that supportive, that just makes any endeavor easier, because I don't it doesn't matter who you are, especially in the early stages of a business. I mean, even the giants of industry, those all started as someone's idea that could have failed, and probably felt early on like, what the hell am I doing, on some level,
right.
before it became the thing that it is, right? If and to have someone in your corner to help you in those moments, feel confident in the vision, and in the give you the confidence to have the grit to push through, because
Absolutely. Yeah.
that's important.
Yeah, I think that's what I needed, is the grit to push through it myself, like because
Yeah.
I was totally lacking confidence. Like when I started this whole thing, and I don't know why it was like that particularly, because I can get on here, like I've forgotten there was a camera there, it's I can get on here and do what I'm doing now,
Yeah.
but until I hear somebody tell me like I'm proud of you, I really didn't have any confidence. I really didn't think like I remember when I had my first conversation with a listener, and it just totally blew me away that they actually wanted to listen. And I'm like, who would
Mm.
want to listen to me talk? You know, that's essentially what I'm doing, is just talking. And they're like, I think you underestimate yourself, and like underestimate how powerful it is to hear somebody, or for someone else to hear those thoughts coming from someone like you know, that we can see that you're normal. We can see that everybody struggles just like what we're going through.
Yeah.
And that's, so sometimes I like to highlight that, because like what I'm going through, somebody might identify with that, and it might resonate with them, and it might change their day to hear somebody else say, you know, you're not alone. And that's, I love talking about family too. And that's another thing. Like family is family is really everything. And without my family, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. And you'd already mentioned, without your family, you wouldn't be able to do what you do. And I
Yeah.
think that's a common theme with entrepreneurs and business owners everywhere, is with the proper support and village, there's nothing that we can't accomplish together, man. Like if like for instance, your wife probably isn't as into spirits as you are. So that's one thing that you're good at that she's not. And she's probably good at things that you're not. And together you're a dream team. I love to tell people that about my wife and I
Yeah.
all the time, our relationship. She's everything that I'm not. I'm everything that she's not. Together, there's nothing that we can't accomplish. Do you find that in your everyday life that and do you ever think about it, that without your family you wouldn't be able to have what you have?
Yeah. Yes, often, I mean, I think that it's
Gratitude, that's, I think
yeah,
that's the word I'm looking for.
yeah. I have a high level of gratitude towards my wife and my family. I think that they are the scaffolding that I can use to make sure that I'm successful in what I'm doing. Um, and then beyond that, you know, I think community. You've got your tribe, right? Your internal community with your family. Um, the other community that I have nourished is the other producers, other makers, other people that are passionate about what they do in the Madison area and beyond, right? I mean, and then those people become a support system where you can be vulnerable, you can be honest, you can say, I'm stuck on this problem. Have you ever seen this? And they have industry knowledge, and they say, yeah, we saw something like that 2 years ago, and this is what we did, or talk to this person. And so for me, being a business owner, it's easy to find yourself in a silo if you let that happen. But it is, one, more enjoyable, and two, it's more practical to have a community of people that and can trust and lean on and work through problems together. So it's the family outside my family that are experts in their area, that might be tangentially um, connected to spirits, right? I might talk to a brewer about a stuck fermentation issue because they're dealing with brewing in a different level than I am at a distillery. Vice versa for some sort of blending. Yeah. Anyway.
Man, it actually makes me think of like a podcaster I spoke with before I'd even started podcasting. It's like my favorite podcaster of all time, Julian Dory, and I've had him on the podcast before.
Mm-hmm.
I was speaking to him through his podcast. He was in a live podcast, or he was premiering it live, and I was talking to him through the chat, and I'm just asking him questions, and he actually answered those questions. And so, like, I asked him about editing software and stuff like that. So, based on his recommendations, that's what we're using. And it actually, like, it doesn't happen like that very often in the podcast world, that you can use your peers to bounce ideas off of, because then they try to steal them. But um with Julian Dory, man, I'll never forget that. He was a open mind, open eyes, open heart, and just communicating honestly. You know, he didn't lie to me. He didn't shrug me off. I asked him a question about podcasting. He helped me out. And that's
Mm-hmm.
essentially, it's not a bottleneck for us anymore because the uh, suggestion that he gave us. But I find that a lot with no matter what I'm doing, but something difficult that I run into is I'm usually the one in the room that knows the most. And that
Mm.
troubles me because I don't hardly know shit. I I tell people I know a little about a lot, but not a lot about anything. And I'm certainly not an expert in anything, but it never ceases to amaze me how intelligent other people make me feel when we're talking about, shit that I don't even know about, but they're asking me questions and I'm like, I don't have any idea. But
Right.
yeah, having a strong community around you and no matter which no matter which business you're building or what kind of business you're building, having a strong community, I can say without the community that I had around me, I wouldn't be doing this stuff. And again, you had already mentioned that with your family. So it's strong sense of community and State Line Distillery, um, Madison, Wisconsin. What made you name it State Line?
Well, for me, it's really kind of this grounding principle about who we are, which is to source things as locally as possible whenever possible. So, I mean, this idea, there are so many rich agricultural communities in our state. And so there's an opportunity to highlight those grains grown in the driftless region of Wisconsin. And in that both allows us to strengthen our community with our farmers and support regenerative agricultural practices, organic farming, but it also allows us to highlight the really unique terroir of that area of the state that then kind of comes through the entire distillation process. So for me, State Line is this, it's more of an idea conceptually of love where love the place you're from and try to bring the best of what that is to whatever you're doing.
I love that so much. And it fits right into what we were talking about community and stuff. I
Yeah,
buy local. That's something that I beat the drum on that all the time. Buy local, support your local businesses, because without those local businesses, you wouldn't have a city, you know?
that's right.
Um, it, it reminds me a lot of, just basic economics, but buying local it's one of those things that you have to have a lot of pride in what you're doing, and you have to have a lot of pride in your community, and if you support your community will support you. I love that so much, and it's so much easier. We were talking about supply chains earlier. It's so much easier. The supply chain is right there,
Yes.
it's so awesome. Well, where can people buy your products? Like I'm in Missouri. How would I buy your product?
Yeah, you go to our website. There is a shop spirits page. So at that point, most people, there's several states that don't allow for direct consumer for spirits, but those are listed on the website. So you would just go and you click on the spirits you want, and they get sent right to your door. So we work with a distribution partner that allows us to do that basically. So I ship my spirits to a third party that then ships it to you. So statelinedistillery.com, and you can shop all of our spirits. And then if you just want to know about us as a company, Instagram's a great place to check out who we are and what we do as well.
Statelinedistillery.com and State Line Distillery on Instagram. John, it's been a fantastic conversation. I think that's a great place to leave this conversation.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you would like our listeners to know about State Line Distillery before we let you go?
Just, I think we've covered a lot of ground, to be honest with you. I think I just want your listeners to give us a try. We're a grain to glass distillery, putting our heart and soul into everything we do and everything we make. And I think we're making some really amazing spirits.
Man, you bet your ass I'm gonna try that coffee liqueur. I gotta try. So I've never actually had a coffee liqueur. I tried that. Is it Kahlua? Is that
Yeah.
somewhat similar to a coffee? It's not coffee liqueur, but it's similar. I've tried that, and I mean, it's okay. It is too sweet. It
It's
is
very
really
sweet.
too sweet.
Yeah.
I like my coffee to taste like coffee, and I when you said that it's got a coffee flavor, I was like, man, I got to try that stuff
Yeah.
because I've never actually had a coffee liqueur, like I said, but the things that I've drank that come close to coffee. It's coffee flavored, and that doesn't taste like coffee to me. But
That's right.
John, I appreciate this conversation, and man, shout out to your family for helping you and being your community and helping you grow your business into what it is now. And and thank you for like thank goodness for your party that you were able to have. Like you said it was 55% of your sales now are from
Yeah.
that coffee liqueur. That's
Yep.
crazy. That is crazy, man. And again, that's statelinedistillery.com. Everybody go out and grab yourself some of this coffee liqueur from State Line Distillery, and shout out to John here. We'll hang out with me for just a moment. We'll let these folks go, and I'll see you on the other side.
All
Hey,
right.
everybody. We'll see you guys next time.